Welcome to Frontline. It is 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we begin tonight with breaking news. It has begun. The United States military has begun carrying out an airstrikes on Iranian targets as a powerful response to yesterday's attack on a commercial ship that was just transiting the Strait of Hormuz. We will have much more on this in just a little bit. Plus, a race against time in Venezuela. The death toll now soaring to at least 920 people after this week's devastating earthquakes. According to the latest reports, more than 3,000 have been injured and hundreds still remain missing or trapped under the rubble. And one of the biggest wildfire cases in years just hit an unexpected roadblock. A judge declaring a mistrial in the case against the man accused of starting last year's deadly Palisades fire after jurors were unable to reach a unanimous verdict. The fire's out, but the legal battle just heating up. I'm Edie Hill, in for Carl Higbie, and Frontline starts right now. If you want to understand the real civil war in American politics, stop looking across the aisle and start looking at the Democratic primary ballot. For decades, the leftist relationship with the Democratic Party was simple. You hold your nose, vote blue, and then beg for a seat at the table. Well, the Democrat Socialists of America, the DSA, they're done begging. They are done asking for a seat at the table. They're actually building a battering ram to knock that table over, and they're using the Democrat Party's own lumber to do it. President Trump today calling these new communists a major threat to the country.
This is the most serious threat to our country since its existence, in my opinion, 250 years ago. This is a major threat to our country.
Well, the old socialist strategy was realignment. The idea was that if you just play nice and you organize enough, you can gently steer that massive Democrat big tent to the left. The alternative was what's called the clean break. You run as a third-party, independent campaigns that feel morally pure, but they inevitably die on election night with 1 or 2% of the vote. The dirty break bridges that gap. It's carried out by political parasites. And I actually mean that as a compliment to their tactical genius. The strategy is this. You run on the Democrat Party ballot line, use their primary infrastructure to reach voters, but organizationally and financially, you remain entirely independent. You build your own machine inside the host body of the Democrat Party, waiting for the day that you're strong enough either to force them out or break off and form a new independent socialist party. And if you think this is just Brooklyn coffee shop theory, take a look at the scoreboard. Check out New York Assembly member Claire Valdez. She didn't just beat the New York Democrat machine. She humiliated it. Valdez is the poster child for the dirty break, saying after her landslide victory, "I didn't come to politics through party machines or electoral ambition. I learned how this system really works in low-wage customer service jobs and found my power in a union." And her victory proved a terrifying reality for the establishment. The DSA's grassroots door-knocking machine is now out-organizing the legacy Democrats in their own backyards. They don't need party consultants. They have their own ground game. Which brings us to the man sweating in that backyard, and that is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Jeffries is the most powerful Democrat in Congress, but he is watching the DSA systematically dismantle his local allies in New York. Now, while the DSA decided not to primary Jeffries directly this cycle, don't mistake that for a truce. The New York City DSA co-chair openly stated the group's strategy is to surround him with socialists, elected officials to exert pressure on him to move further left. Meanwhile, out in the Midwest, the moderate wing is watching this unfold, and they're hoping that they can outmaneuver the socialist march across America. So take Senator Slotkin from Michigan. She represents the establishment's survival instinct. She just rolled out what she calls an economic war plan, and she's begging the Democrat Party to find alpha energy and ruthlessly prioritize the middle class before the socialists tear the Purple Party's state coalition apart.
There is every single day a debate going on in the Democratic Party. And for me, this is why I'm a big believer in just new leadership, significant change. The old models do not work for people, and that includes in the Democratic Party. I think since Biden was in, we need new leadership in the White House, and the Senate, and on both sides of the aisle. That includes Democrats.
So Slotkin is the ultimate pragmatist. When Bernie Sanders rails against the oligarchy, Slotkin hits back. She recently said, "I agree with everything he said, other than my dad didn't know what oligarchy meant." So Slotkin's drawing a line in the sand. She said voters want responsible change, not reckless change. And she views the DSA's dirty break as a hasty gamble that will hand the country right back to the Republicans. So she wants to fix the plumbing. The DSA wants to tear it out, burn down the House, and then rebuild it. Now, stuck in all the middle of this is Representative Pramila Jayapal. She is the former chair of the Progressive Caucus. Jayapal is trying to bridge that unbridgeable spot. She fights tooth and nail inside the establishment, pushing against defense budgets, demanding Medicare for all, and today, Supreme Court reform.
We need a Supreme Court that is not beholden to corporate interests, to any president, but is actually willing to interpret the law and not reinterpret it and revisit settled decisions. And this court has shown over and over again that it is incapable of doing that. We need to expand the court. We need term limits.
So Jayapal warns the Democrat leaders that if they don't deliver bold, tangible results, the base is going to walk. She operates as a loyal Democrat, but also says socialism, it's no longer a bad word in the U.S. And when asked if a socialist could be the leading candidate for the Democrats' presidential ticket in 2028, she says anything's possible. So where does this leave the Democrat Party? Well, it leaves them funding the very movement that is using them now and intends to either replace them in the party or dump the party when it's no longer useful. The establishment thought they could just absorb the socialist left. They thought they could give them a few committee seats, a podcast microphone, and quiet them down. They fundamentally misunderstood the threat. The DSA isn't trying to join the club. It's using the club's ballot line to assemble an army of its own. The dirty break is in full motion, and as incumbents across the country are quickly learning, you can't negotiate a truce with a movement that was built to break you. As of tonight, your grandfather's Democrat Party is clinging to life support, and the insurgents aren't there to save it. They're dressed up as a nurse while trying to pull the plug. Joining me now is the host of the Andrew Klavan Show. Andrew Klavan, great to have you with us. So what do you think about this movement across the country, not just in New York, not just in California, but many places across the country where socialist candidates are winning?
Yeah, first of all, it's Klavan, by the way, but it's not surprising at all. I mean, the only real difference between these socialists and the thrust of the Democrat Party is the socialists don't lie. The Democrats run as moderates, but they always govern pretty much as socialists and pretty much as anti-Americans. The hatred of America, the idea that only our sins really exist, the idea that the government is going to solve every problem, the panic over climate change, all the things, and the open borders that we had over Joe Biden, all of those things are simply being promoted by the DSA, where the Democrats lie about them when they run and then put them into action when they get into office. So this is not really as big a break as it seems, but it is very frightening because these people really openly hate America. They openly hate Jewish people. They openly want to take over the economic system, which has never worked in any country anywhere. It has always ruined the economy. And so they are heading for disasters in the cities that they take over if they rule as socialists, in fact. But in some ways, what do you expect? The one thing that socialists are really good at is taking over institutions that have been built by better people than themselves. So they took over our universities, they took over our public schools, they took over Hollywood, they took over our news media until the internet gave us a wider range of news media in order with which we could fight back. So all of these young people who are charging to these socialist barricades have been schooled in ignorance. They've been taught that their country is bad. They've been taught that we're oppressors, that they've been taught that the victims of genocide are the committers of genocide. All of these things that they believe, they learned in our schools that we pay for with our taxes. Yeah. So, in some ways you have to say that the conservatives have been asleep at the cultural switch. We let these things go by while we were arguing over the latest thing we're panicked over, and we let them slowly, over the course of 50 or 60 years, take over the culture. And now the chickens have come home to roost.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you say. And I don't think a lot of people realize when a socialist tells you that they want something, believe that that's exactly what they want. Mayor Mamdani, he did not sugarcoat anything. He said, I want free buses. I want free childcare. I want city-run grocery stores. I want this. I want that. He doesn't have the money for most of it, but he told you exactly what he wanted. Now there are centrist Democrats that are listening, and more than a dozen of them are pushing back at their party's leftward lurch, signing on to the promise to America that is embracing capitalism and it's opposing socialism. Is this enough, or is it almost too late? Because you've got so many establishment candidates, incumbents, who were beaten in the primary, and the socialists are out there and they're already getting ready for when they go to Washington, what they intend to accomplish.
Well, what are the Democrats going to say? I mean, where do they actually disagree with the socialists? I mean, except for the fact that they run as moderates, where do they actually disagree? What Democrat has come forward and said, what a great country this is. We'd like to see a little bit more welfare maybe, but other than that, this is a really beautiful country.
That's a really good point, because they don't go after the DSA platform. They don't say, yes, we need a Senate.
Right.
Yes, we need a Supreme Court. We need an independent presidency. So the things that are really way out there, they're not even bringing up. I guess perhaps they hope people don't realize it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They have nothing to offer that the socialists aren't offering more honestly and more loudly. And I think, look, I wouldn't be too complacent about this. I think right now, obviously, they're taking over blue cities, but this is the way they spread things. Like Mamdani is being really smart. He's not imposing a lot of socialist programs in New York that will ruin the economy. He's waiting to use his power and his popularity and his pretty smile to, put people into Congress so that they have the power that they want to start to do things. I mean, what is it like people standing there, grown-up people standing and cheering for free things? The word free is like the word dragon. We can imagine what it is, but it doesn't refer to anything in real life. Nothing is free, So, and what are they talking about when they tell them that their biggest problem in life is Israel, a country that's been a great ally, that treats women with fairness, that treats other religions with fairness, surrounded by people who do none of those things. So that to me is the real thing. I think the socialism is actually a mask for a hatred for this country, a hate for countries in general, that because they make people free and they keep people free. And this absolute fantasy that if they can just get all the power, somehow life is going to change, money. Human nature is going to change, and people are going to be fair.
Yeah, that's it. Mayor Mamdani hasn't been able to enact a lot of the stuff because he hasn't been able to get the money. He wants other people's money so that he can do the things that he wants. And you've got Graham Plattner running up in Maine, and he wants all the money, too. He wants to go after the billionaires. They've only got one. If that person's smart, they're hightailing it out of town right now. But the Democrats do seem to be in denial that the party just keeps on going farther left, more towards socialism with each election. Listen to Delaware Senator Chris Coons.
Yes, there were 3 primaries in New York City where the result was that Mayor Mamdani's endorsed candidates were successful. There were also congressional primaries in other places. There's primaries all over the country for Senate seats, for House seats. And I don't, frankly, think that the outcome of 3 elections in New York City shows a clear national trend.
If only it were 3 elections in New York City, but it's not. It has been lots of elections in lots of places across the country. So the Democrats, I think, are trying to play this down quite a bit.
Well, when you're backing a guy like, as in Maine, who's got a literal Nazi tattoo, and let's remember, Nazi stands for National Socialists. They were not right-wingers when they started out. They were socialists. When you're backing people like that, when you're backing the guy in Texas, Tallarico, who's preaching that the Bible teaches abortion, talking absolute nonsense about religion, maybe that's going to hurt those people enough to wake the Democrat Party up. But I'm much more worried that they're putting in place a push for AOC in 2028. And people who sit around worrying about Gavin Newsom, I don't think Gavin Newsom is going anywhere because his record is so bad. Mm-hmm. But AOC is a very popular person in her district, and she's very good on camera. So I'm not sure that she is as beatable as people think she is. This is a real deal. So what I would be thinking about now is what are conservatives selling and how are they selling it? What is it we want to say what's our program? Because the one thing about socialism is they have a dream. Their dream is that everything's going to be fair, everything's going to be great. We're going to tax the rich, and somehow that's not going to make their businesses disappear. That's not going to destroy wealth as it has everywhere it's ever been tried. But at least it sounds good, especially to young people who have been schooled in this stuff and don't know any better. What are the conservatives talking about, and when are we going to start to talk about the fact that the more power government has, the less power you have. Yeah. And ultimately that will come around to your door, and whoever you are, and it's going to take your money, take your freedom, take your right to speak away. And that's going to be something that I don't think America is going to like very much if it actually comes to pass. And it's certainly looking very likely right now. Andrew Klavan, thank you very much for being with us. Very good points. Thanks a lot. Coming up, so much for a ceasefire. The U.S. hits Iran after the IRGC launches drones at ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. We'll break that all down with our foreign policy panel in just a bit. But first, classified no more. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton pleading guilty to mishandling classified information. We've got the latest from Washington next.
This was America in 1980, held in contempt by foreign nations. Across the world, people were losing their freedoms. So many countries thought America had seen its day, but we knew better. So we stopped complaining together and started working together. Today, America is strong again. We're looking to the future with confidence and pride. America's best days and democracy's best days lie ahead.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. Tremfya can help with remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years. Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
It's me, Ricky. You grew up with me. I am using Fatty 15 to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. I urge you to try Fatty 15.
At Omaha Steaks, we take premium aged steak and turn it into pure ground burgers like this. Our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big, juicy burgers, all for just $79.99 at omahasteaks.com/TV. Burger Perfection guaranteed.
What if losing a pair of sunglasses was actually fine? That's why we built Shady Rays. Every pair of Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection, but no matter what happens, whether you drop them in the lake, a wave gets them, they're covered with lost and broken protection.
Former National Security Director John Bolton pleading guilty to felony charges today. Now, he was entrusted with defending America's top secret intelligence, yet became the security risk himself and a target for Iranian hackers. National correspondent Alana Austin has details.
Ex-Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton admits that he broke the law, and prosecutors say his actions risked American lives and exposed some of the nation's most closely guarded secrets. Court filings say the 77-year-old, who served in numerous senior government roles, abused his power the day after President Donald Trump fired him from a top post. On September 11th, 2019, he shopped a memoir to publishers, promising direct quotes from top officials. With the plea agreement, Bolton concedes this is all true. He illegally stored top secret records for 7 years, then shared files with his wife and daughter while writing that tell-all. Ironically, the hawkish Bolton's own secrets began unraveling when Iran hacked his personal email account. In court Friday, the judge asked, "Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?" Bolton responded, "I am, Your Honor, and I'm sorry for it." Bolton, who is known for his media appearances over the years, was quiet when he departed the courthouse on Friday, declining to take my questions.
Ambassador Bolton, do you have a message to the American people?
Trump would want you to help the Justice Department with classified spilling.
Why did you do it, Ambassador Bolton?
By pleading guilty, Bolton could see leniency in this case. A sentencing is scheduled for October. He's still ordered to fork over more than $2 million in fines. Reporting from Greenbelt, Maryland, I'm Alana Austin for Newsmax.
All right. Thanks, Alana. Joining me now to discuss is former Assistant Attorney General for the Justice Department, Theo Wold, and political and legal analyst Mehek Cooke. Theo, let me begin with you. Your thoughts on John Bolton pleading guilty and that he was sending this classified information via AOL.
Yeah, look, Edie, I served with John Bolton in the Trump White House in '45, and all of us always commented on the fact that he carried that same yellow flow pad that you just saw there in those scenes from outside the Eastern District of Virginia. He would take copious notes on everything, almost like a scorekeeper at a baseball game. Who said this? Who said that? It was odd then, and I'll say, look, Bolton is a beneficiary, as so many people are in D.C., of the rules for thee, not for me sort of dictum, and I'm glad that he was investigated. I'm glad that he was prosecuted. I'm glad this has now had a settlement. It should be a warning to the rest of the deep state in D.C. that there are actual statutory requirements on these kinds of things, on the handling of secret information, on the ability to take and keep notes and whether those should be archived. And I'm glad that now we have this clear sort of through-line thesis that it doesn't matter how important you think you are, you're under the law just like any other ordinary American.
Yeah. Mac, the Epstein case, it is apparently not going away anytime soon. Just today, the Oversight Committee served Leon Black with 2 subpoenas during his transcribed interview about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein after he repeatedly declined to discuss non-disclosure agreements. So do you think they're ever going to be able to get answers from these people?
I think they will. Now that Mr. Theo is under a congressional subpoena, we have to open up those NDAs. Generally, non-disclosure agreements are private agreements. They're settlements that he may have paid. Epstein may have been a conduit. But once congressional hearings are official and there's a subpoena out, the American people really want to know what those NDAs were, because Epstein has built this layer of power. He has allegedly served as an intermediary for potential sexual assault. So he cannot hide behind saying these are confidential. At some point, subpoena power is going to outweigh any NDAs. And I also think this is a warning shot for most individuals who think that they can pay hush money and settlements when they are doing such egregious acts. This is a warning shot for everybody. But I think this congressional subpoena could actually bring a lot of information and a referral to the DOJ.
Yeah. Theo, we can't forget Bill Gates. He testified already where he said that he believed Epstein contemplated blackmailing him over his extramarital affairs. It's not just 1 or 2 or 3. I mean, these are brilliant people doing really stupid things.
Yeah, and look, a lot of them have the same sort of vacuous explanation for this as well. I had no idea. I didn't know that. And it really banks on this assumption that the American people are too dumb to put together a simple chronology, which is, you know, if you start to piece together the timeline here, plenty of these people, whether they were hosting NBC News or whether they're, you know, prime movers in Silicon Valley, they knew about Epstein's prior convictions. They were still visiting him in his home in Manhattan, still hanging out with him down in Florida or the Keys, after he was already found guilty and pled to certain misconduct in that case in Florida. So, you know, the chronology just doesn't bear out. And I think over time, more and more people are going to feel the pressure, not just of public scrutiny, but as Mehek Cooke just pointed out, of legal scrutiny of their behavior with Epstein.
Yeah. And Mehek, let's talk about the Supreme Court, because yesterday it handed Trump 2 major immigration wins, allowing him to turn back asylum seekers and immediately halt temporary protected status from deportation for Syrians and Haitians. So temporary, I guess, it finally does mean temporary. Your reaction to their ruling?
Edie, I wasn't surprised. This should have never had to even go to the Supreme Court. What Democrats have done is they are selling obstruction. It's like selling a map to a drowning map instead of actually giving them a life raft. They have lied to Haitians and Syrians by giving them false hope that they could stay. Even in the state of Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine, a Republican, gave false hope to Haitians that are living here in Springfield. What we should have done is followed the law and actually built a plan so that these individuals that came temporarily under humanitarian status could return home. And this is where Democrats play politics today, Edie, because they're using them as political pawns and not really realizing the ramifications. These are human lives, and if they really cared about the humanitarian purpose, they would have helped them exit this country. Our immigration law should not be to the whims and fancies of judicial review, and this is where the Supreme Court was very strong. They said DHS has the ultimate authority of TPS, so people should pack their bags and go home.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for being with us, Theo Wold and Mehek Cooke. Appreciate your expertise and sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evie.
Coming up, Tehran doubles down, claiming it has sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz. The Trump administration says not so fast. We've got that next.
Our founding fathers believed in God and trusted in Him to free our new nation. George Washington escaped death and capture many times. Was it divine intervention? Watch God and America's 250th on Newsmax.
The human brain is truly incredible. It's a complex network of 100 billion neurons that create cognitive functions surpassing that of supercomputers. Our brain controls our thoughts, our emotions, and our movements. Prevagen contains apoaquarin, originally discovered in jellyfish, and is designed specifically for the brain to help keep it amazing, so that we can continue to live our best life. Prevagen, for your brain.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, and it's got to be Super Beets from Human.
Super Beets is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support with clinically studied grapeseed extract for nearly 2 times more effective blood pressure support than diet and exercise alone.
Super Beets works. I swear by it, and I know you're going to love it too.
Save up to 40% off on Amazon Prime Day.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring, understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
What are you doing? We need to save time.
There.
What just happened?
I just saved time. By buying a car in Carvana. It was all online. Got pre-qualified instantly. Great terms. Save time and buy your car in Carvana.
The first time I experienced vertigo, the room was spinning, like I was in a clothes dryer. Then I started taking LipoBalance support. Its ingredients are clinically shown to help reduce dizziness and spinning. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
From senior to childcare to pets and more, the new Care.com makes it easier than ever to find the care you need. And you don't have to hire just anyone. You can find a background-checked caregiver who's the right fit for you. Join now and find care at Care.com.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today at Ethos.com.
A fiery escalation in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran launching a brazen attack on a cargo ship following an Omani-approved transit route. It was a clear violation of the agreement between the U.S. and Iran. And Vice President J.D. Vance just put on X, he says Iran's violence will be met with violence. So they can expect that. Tehran is threatening to target any vessel that is not following the Iranian-approved navigation path. And further, it claims that sovereign control is theirs over the international water and that they have the right to charge any ship moving through it. This afternoon, the War Department showing they mean business, striking Iranian missiles and drone storage locations and radar sites. The IRGC now threatening a response in retaliation. Retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Blaine Holt and retired U.S. Marine Colonel Mike Jernigan join us. General, the situation is so tense that the vice president confirmed that there's now a direct hotline that connects CENTCOM to the Revolutionary Guard because they're concerned there could be an accidental escalation. It's kind of like the Cold War Moscow-Washington hotline. Is that where the relationship is?
Yeah, I mean, this is the appropriate turn of events here. They fired on a ship. We don't know if Iran officially fired on a ship. It could have been a buck private who disregarded any rules of engagement he was given. We don't know. They're in chaos. They have no fewer than 4 separate regimes right now, one of which is negotiating with us. So what did we do? Just a little while ago, we went and started vaporizing a lot of targets in those islands, radars, drone sites, weapon stores. We will, if you do this type of stuff, we will go after you. But here's why the split and the two-faced nature of Iran right now. You've got these guys who are negotiating with us. They're civilians. They're trying. But they know that if they go to Tehran, they're going to be facing bullets from the very IRGC that knows there's only one way off the planet for them. The IRGC is an extinct species. It's just in its final throes, and we're going to have to deal with this right now. So there is more military action ahead, but there's also negotiations and diplomacy about what the final deal will be. In the last 5 days, we've seen revolts in the cities of Iran, and the people are starting now to take matters into their own hands. Why? There's no food and water, and so they're on it.
Well, Colonel, today both Israel and Lebanon struck a peace framework, which will see Israel withdraw troops from some areas in Lebanon. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, hailing this as a first step. Listen.
As I said today, as I've told all the parties here today, it's the beginning of the beginning. There's a lot of work ahead. We don't in any way underestimate the difficulty of the task ahead, but we understand the importance of it, how vital it is, and we are honored to have played a part in bringing this together.
Colonel, every time Iran sends up some drones or missiles, they say, oh, it's because Israel was taking action in Lebanon. Does this change that?
No, this is their playbook. The Iranians are going to continue to use their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, and they're going to continue to try to enlarge this war. And they're getting some of their own medicine because by doing that, now the United States and Israel can say, no, you guys have to stop shooting. Specifically in Israel and Lebanon are neighboring countries. Hezbollah is an illegal non-state actor that is causing violence. So Lebanon and Israel together are in agreement that Hezbollah needs to stop what it's doing, and there are going to be some consequences to ensure that happens.
Yeah. General, I want to shift to the years-long now Russia-Ukraine conflict. Newsmax contributor Fred Fleitz wrote an article. It's entitled, Why Putin Needs a Deal with Trump Now. It highlights Ukraine's long-range drone capabilities to strike deep in Russian territory. And Fleitz says that Putin urgently needs a deal with Trump before it's too late. Every additional month of fighting strengthens Ukraine's asymmetric advantages, deepens Russia's manpower crisis, and erodes Moscow's ability to sustain the conflict. Ukraine appears to have really made huge advances in this drone warfare, and it has changed the trajectory of this war. Do you think that's accurate?
I don't, Edie. I'm sorry. I'm going to take a different view on this one. I get the incredible technology advancements that the Ukrainian army has made. I mean, literally at the brigade level, they're assembling their own drones and firing them. And there is nothing more valorous than the fight they are taking to the Russians. The problem is they don't have the logistics. They don't have the sustainability. They certainly are not acquiring the acreage that has been reported. And you're talking about Russia, which is sitting on $75 trillion in assets, unlimited men, and a dictatorial governance structure. In other words, this is going to be attrition warfare. I know President Trump at the G7 was very stern with the European leaders, saying, you haven't lifted one diplomatic finger yet, and you're going to start following United States leadership to get this thing offloaded. Look, what the Russians are doing is horrendous up on those lines. But if we want to help the Ukrainians, more war and endless war is not going to defeat the Russian army at all. In fact, it could get us to a place of escalation that takes us to the place in the Cold War we never wanted to ever see.
Yeah, and you just think about the generation that's being lost there on the battlefields. It's humbling and it's frightening because this thing has just dragged on and on. Thank you so much for joining us, General Holt and Colonel Jernigan.
Thank you.
Coming up, why can't the Democrats ever be happy for America's success? The latest issue, you won't believe it. Everybody loves the World Cup. Well, not everyone, it appears. We've got all that in our culture clash next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
As a kid, I was desperate for the $300 pairs of sunglasses that I saw all the athletes in my life wear. But it was just not realistic for me to spend that kind of money on sunglasses, something that I would probably lose or break. And that was the genesis for starting Shady Rays. High-quality, polarized, performance sunglasses with lost and broken protection. If you'd like to try a pair completely risk-free, see why millions have switched to Shady Rays at shadyrays.com and shop our full collection.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Roofmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free roof tune-up with your Roofmax restoration.
My name is Stephen Kubrick. I wrestle as Steve Macklin in TNA. Americans shouldn't stand for their heroes sleeping on the streets. Across this great country, there are thousands of veterans with no place to call home. They deserve better. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation is committed to eradicating veteran homelessness by providing housing and critical services. So please help by donating $11 a month at t2t.org. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
There's no way a mouthwash can prevent bad breath for 12 hours.
You're right, Val. Mouthwash can, but this is dentist-developed Smart Mouth Activated Mouthwash.
Activated?
Yeah, if your mouthwash isn't activated, it's not Smart Mouth. See, this plus this activate for 12 hours of bad breath prevention. Guaranteed. Try it. You won't have bad breath in the morning. Good night, Phil.
Get dentist-developed Smart Mouth today. It's the smarter mouthwash, available at these fine retailers.
It's me, Ricky. You know me. You grew up with me. I'm 56 and a half years of age. I am using this right here, Fatty 15, to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient in Fatty 15 has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. And it is a game changer for your overall vitality. I urge you to try Fatty 15. Give your cells what they need and give yourself a chance with more time.
If they tell you I'm a traitor, it's the truth. I betrayed my country. Did I cause harm? Yes. I sacrificed people. I deserve my fate. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't hesitate.
Some folks, they just never see the good in life, especially some Democrats. Even the success of the World Cup this summer, too much for them to handle. Politico put out a piece titled, "Democrats Grapple Uncomfortably with World Cup Success." What? Yeah, a Democrat strategist who attended a game said, "I think that there was a little bit of liberal wish casting that this would maybe be a distraction to sort of stick it to Trump, maybe be a disaster. It hasn't been yet." Well, the classic Democrats wishing the worst for our country. Joining me now is host of Scrolling with Hayley podcast, Hayley Caronia, and Senior Director of MRC Video, Eric Scheiner. Hayley, your reaction to that they're wishing that it's going to be a disaster because then it'll really bother Trump?
Why is this something that Democrats have to grapple with? Why is this something that they're uncomfortable with? It's really a shame that the Democrats don't feel like they can be included in a success under President Trump's administration, which really doesn't have much to do with President Trump at all. But they can't see anything as a success because they can't give Trump anything. They can't give him an inch. It's disgusting. They're so miserable, and it's sad to see. I mean, these are the same Democrats that say they don't feel represented by the American flag, and they have trans flags instead.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, let's talk about the World Cup, Eric. FIFA is clashing with Iran because the Iran Football Federation wants FIFA to prevent any ceremonies or promotional activities in support of the LGBTQ plus community at a, quote, pride match between Egypt and Iran today in Seattle, as well as restricting symbols or representations of the pride movement at Lumen Field. So I wonder how the Queers for Palestine feel about this. Like, who will be the left one on this one? Who is the LGBTQ? Is it the Muslims? You know, who's taking that side?
Yeah, well, who's going to win out? I mean, we've seen in the past that entire Muslim communities, I want to say Hamtramck, Michigan, you know, they got to take down the pride flag, and they said, well, you know, it might be offensive to people that have religious values. Imagine if a Christian community did that. But Hamtramck, Michigan was allowed to do that. So here we have a country saying we don't want to have LGBTQ celebrations at our game, and it happens to be a country that America's not having the best of relationships with. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. If you've announced already that it's a Pride Night game, I think it's going to be very hard to prevent people from bringing in their rainbow flags and that type of paraphernalia into the actual game itself.
Yeah, kind of ironic that it's the Pride Night game and they were the teams in it. Now, Haley, The View's Whoopi Goldberg, she says that she thinks that no one wants voter ID laws. Listen to this.
He torpedoed the bill because he wants another bill signed.
Yeah, right.
And it seems to me no one wants to sign this bill.
It doesn't have the votes.
It doesn't have the votes. And so he's trying to push it and do all kinds of, it's ridiculous. It's the bill that would force people to have ID when they come to vote. And nobody wants it.
It's basically called the Save America Act, which is ironic because it's really saving his behind.
Yeah.
Save the Donald Trump behind Act.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that they never seem to bring up the fact that, say, the U.S. Senate somehow disadvantages 20 million people in America because to go see the Senate in action, you have to show an identification card, a real one. and the thing that's odd here, Haley, is that 80% of Americans, I mean, poll after poll, Democrats, Republicans, the majority, vast majority, want voter ID. So what in the world is Whoopi talking about?
Yeah, she doesn't know what she's talking about normally. And I was going to say, I mean, I'm one of those 80% of Americans who wants voter ID. I mean, we all have ID, and I would bet my life savings that Whoopi Goldberg and Sunny Hostin, the women of color on this panel, have an ID in their back pocket or in their purse. So I don't really know what they're talking about, how this would infringe on any votes. It certainly wouldn't, and it's racist to consider otherwise.
Yeah, it's very interesting because they always bring up it's going to disenfranchise women, people of color, and the poor. And I even heard this. They said that people in America who live hundreds of miles from their polling booth, I don't know a single person that could possibly live hundreds of miles away from where they cast a ballot, that it's going to disenfranchise them. I mean, it's just a bunch of baloney coming out there. And Eric, I assume that you see kind of the folly in this also, that Americans are smart enough, even if we are women or of color or poor, to figure out how to get the correct ID.
Yeah, Democrats seem to have a problem understanding that people are smart enough to get an ID. It's really not that hard. It's really not that hard to show an ID. People do it all the time, whether it's getting their driver's license or going to the liquor store or going to a bar. This is something that people normally do. But, you mentioned Whoopi Goldberg, and this is something we see on The View. We saw it when J.D. Vance was there, and she talked about this administration working to erase black people and black history. And when J.D. Vance said, well, give me some examples of what you're talking about, well, they couldn't. All they could talk about is how it seems to them. And that's what you get a lot. Every time you question, especially these leftist media figures, oh, nobody wants, nobody likes these ID. No, actually, it's very popular. Every study and every poll shows it's extremely popular.
Yeah.
But it seems to them that it's not.
And I
wonder why. Maybe it's your mindset and the fact that you're not dealing with facts.
Yeah, I was thinking of the person who was claiming, oh, people have to drive hundreds of miles, you know. And I'm thinking, well, if they're driving hundreds of miles, they're definitely supposed to have a driver's license on them. So again, it makes zero sense. Hayley, the Obamas sat for an interview about the new library, and they're doing this kind of weird thing. It's almost like faking humility. So watch this and give me your thoughts.
He's completely uncomfortable with this thing being about him. I was like, you know, he was just telling me, I think there should be a little less of me here. I was like, well, who should we be talking about? And he was like, Gandhi. And I was like, no, Gandhi will have his own museum. I think people coming here will want to hear about you.
And if he didn't want anything to be about him, why did he knock down a Chicago National Park and build himself a huge library there, jack up rents in the neighborhood, force people out? Seems a little odd.
I think it's because he saw how ugly the building turned out, and now he wants to distance himself, which I wouldn't blame him for that. I mean, it really is an atrocity. So that's probably why he wants to distance himself. But this is a bunch of baloney. I mean, no one goes into politics and wants to go off the grid and not get any attention. The Obamas have their own podcast. They're gracing the cover of People magazine. This is a lie.
Yeah, I look at that building and I think it looks like a bad architect in Russia must have come up with that and then constructed it. It is just not attractive. Hayley and Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, President Trump joining the Faith and Freedom Conference, speaking to thousands of members about how to win the midterms and support his pro-family agenda. Details next.
Is your bath old and outdated, maybe even unsafe? In just one day, Jacuzzi gives you the safety you need and the personal style you want, all at a price you'll love. So your bathroom can go from this to this, this to this, or even this to this. And right now, we're waiving all installation costs and offering no interest or payments for a year.
Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-384-6902.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all three main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
Stop trusting foreign antivirus to defeat foreign-made ransomware. American-made PCmatic protects your family, your home, and your workplace. Go to PCmatic.com. Built by Americans to protect America.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at GetTrumpWatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com. Religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger. than it has been in many, many years. And we officially rededicated America as one nation under God. And we're not changing. We're not changing. And while I am in the White House, I will defend Christians and all Americans of faith 100%. You have it 100%, and you've seen it already.
President Trump delivering on his promise to protect religious liberty. Speaking today to thousands of folks at the Freedom and Faith Coalition Conference, the Religious Liberty Commission presenting Trump with a report today detailing the historic ways the administration is protecting freedom. It received input from more than 100 witnesses of diverse ages, religions, expertise, and backgrounds during 7 different hearings. The report is listing 12 key recommendations to strengthen religious liberty for all Americans, including this: instructing the Department of Justice to clarify the proper understanding of the Establishment Clause and separation of church and state, as well as federal agencies issuing Know Your Rights posters for students, parents, public schools, teachers, religious leaders, healthcare workers, and military service members. It is another promise made, another promise kept by President Trump. And Dr. Ben Carson, Vice Chair of the Religious Liberty Commission, was there with the president today. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the president was also pointing out that he didn't see faith within the Biden administration. Let's listen to this and get your reaction.
The last administration carried out a reign of persecution and repression against Christians and people of faith like America has never seen before. It's terrible. They turned a nation founded on freedom for believers into a place where Catholics were targeted by the FBI, where pro-life grandmothers were put in jail for praying, and where members of our military were thrown out of the armed forces for their religious beliefs.
Your reaction to that?
Well, let's just say the previous administration didn't have the same level of importance for this topic. During President Trump's first term, a lot of progress was made with religious liberty. Then there was backsliding, and now it's been reinvigorated with the commission. And helping people to recognize what their rights are is so critical, because we listened to hundreds of witnesses who talked about horrible things you wouldn't believe were going on in our country, and they don't know that they have rights. So posting those rights, making sure that everybody actually knows them, I think will go a long way toward resolving this problem. And we have to recognize that we're a unique country and that our founding document says that our rights come from our Creator and not from government. Government can't take those rights away from us. And if we begin to teach our children that, because they don't hear anything about that in most schools, and they're not hearing anything about Christianity. They can teach about Buddhism and all other kinds of things, not about Christianity. We need to teach them everything.
Yeah,
and let them make their own choices.
Now, speaking to that, in Texas, they are set to require millions of students there to study Bible stories, such as, the story of David and Goliath for the younger kids, and then 1 Corinthians for older students. And they say it's to supplement the classic literature from Charles Dickens and Jane Austen. What do you make of this, bringing the religious studies into the schools, even at the younger ages?
Well, if you look at the founding of our country and the things that were written by our founders, including our Constitution, you'll see that a lot of it comes from the Bible. Therefore, wouldn't it be smart to actually know the root of the various things that you hear about and make a decision as to whether or not that's valid for you? And, we spend all this time saying, no, you can't talk about God, you can't talk about Jesus or anything like that. Did you ever stop to think that maybe our founding document talks about our Creator? Our Pledge of Allegiance says we're one nation under God. All of our money says in God we trust, and yet you're not supposed to talk about it. Doesn't that sound a little schizophrenic? And maybe we should just stop and reassess the fact that our country rose from nothing to the pinnacle of the world in record time. And it wasn't a coincidence that we had the kind of values that made that possible.
Yeah. We are very blessed as a nation. Dr. Ben Carson, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Before we go, a furry friend stole the spotlight at a Miami Marlins game, and wait till you see why. That's next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
This is the story of the one who knows half-baked preparation leads to downtime that could bring the whole workday to a standstill. That's why she relies on Grainger. With professional-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure her team, and a whole lot of donuts, make every day a little sweeter. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
If you know luxury, it's not just award-winning, it's rewarding. Sattva mattresses support all types of sleepers with durable steel coils and plush organic cotton. Sattva luxury mattresses are handcrafted and assembled in American factories using globally sourced premium materials and brought directly to you with our complimentary in-home delivery and setup service. Sattva, luxury mattresses made affordable.
There are things you can do every day to take care of your brain. Exercising, eating well, getting plenty of sleep, staying mentally active, and staying connected with friends and family are all great for your brain. Prevagen can help supplement these good habits because it's made for your brain. Add Prevagen to your daily routine and give your brain the care it deserves. Prevagen, for your brain.
Ever wished you could brew your own beer, but figured it was too complicated, too messy, too much effort? Well, now you can. Meet Pinter, the home beer system everyone's talking about. Fresh beer, brewed and tapped by you. No fuss, no guesswork. Just brew, chill, tap, done. And this summer of soccer, bring match day home with the limited edition USA Pinter. Keep fresh beer on tap for every big moment. Host the ultimate watch party and bring the stadium atmosphere home all tournament long. Fresh beer on tap for every big match. You don't need a sports bar for the ultimate summer of soccer, just a Pinter. Right now, get your limited edition Pinter free with our flexible beer plan and save $264. Tap into the world's best beer experience. Free Pinter. Freshly brewed beer. Zero fuss. Go to pinter.com/USA to claim your offer today.
Finally, let's end on some good news we can all agree on. A dog at a Miami Marlins game went viral after sitting there watching another dog devouring a hot dog. He's got the saddest face. He's looking at it, doesn't bark. He's just like, wait, what does he have there? Why does he get that? I want it. Heartbroken watching that. People went crazy over this video. The Miami Marlins later tweeted out a wanted poster. It's a dog named Jonah in hopes of rewarding him. Believe it or not, the internet actually found the dog. Marlins are now giving him his dream day at the park, and he gets to eat as many hot dogs as he wants.
Oh, that's nice.
You're not saying that with sincerity. It is.
Hey, it's nice. You're good for the dog. He gets a hot dog and gets to watch a baseball game.
You're saying that like a cat lover.
No. No,
Yeah, I
Edie.
think so.
Not. What do we got here? Oh, he wanted one, huh?
He does want one. He
wants
deserves
that
it
hot
too.
dog.
Now he gets a bunch of them.
Well, what a life of luxury these dogs live, huh?
I know.
Go to Marlins games, get hot dogs, and better Friday night than most. All right.
Than your dates.
Yeah, yes. You're right. Edie, why you got to rub it in my face, huh? All right.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.